Hello friends, it's Melanie with the Astro Weather for the week today, starting today the 8th of May until the 13th of May. So the big highlight this week is of course the full moon of the Buddha, the Wesak Moon, which is typically the full moon in May when Buddhists celebrate the Buddha's birth, the Buddha's enlightenment, and the Buddha's transition into nirvana all in one. And typically, that full moon comes in Scorpio Taurus. It can also be in Sagittarius Gemini if it's in the Gemini season. But yeah, this year, as mostly, it is again in Scorpio Taurus. And that will be on the 12th of May, day after Mother's Day. And it carries a lot of tension, which we can also help ease with the teachings of the Buddha. What am I talking about regarding the tensions? Let's start with that. This is the chart of the full moon. Look at that. Lots of red going on. Not just the full moon axis from the moon in Scorpio to the sun and Uranus in Taurus. That's already quite something that the sun approaches Uranus. Will be with Uranus on the 17th of May. And Mars is, almost in between. It's a wide T-square here, not exact, thankfully, otherwise you'd have another T-square. But we also have a T-square here from Mercury will be in early Taurus, which will enter on the 10th, so we're talking about that. Mercury in early Taurus, Lilith in early Scorpio, and Pluto in early Aquarius, right between another T-square. So this one is pretty exact. And yet a T-square from Jupiter, or to Jupiter, however you see it, from the nodal axis. South node, end of Virgo, north node, end of Pisces, to Jupiter, end of Gemini. So this is a mutable T-square, mutable signs. Then you have the fixed one with the to Pluto in early Aquarius, with Scorpio and Taurus. And then you have another fixed and another wide fixed one with a full moon in Scorpio Taurus to Mars in Leo. Wow, that is a lot going on. All these layers, all these various themes that are concentrating with the full moon. So a full moon brings things to fruition, as I've mentioned many times. And here again, what is coming to fruition? It has to do with the Scorpio full moon in relation to Pluto. So there's the bigger undercurrent, has to do with Pluto having just gone retrograde on the 4th of May, and Scorpio, where the full moon is ruled by Pluto. So that Pluto theme and that Pluto T-square is definitely the primary one that plays into the full moon. And what's that about? So Pluto is the first planet that turned retrograde after a retro-free phase we've had. Not too long, about a month. But Pluto started the retro phase of spring, summer, fall, and winter. So there won't be a retro-free phase until 2026. And Pluto is currently the only retrograde planet. That's why it also stands out. What's with that Pluto retro from May the 4th on, since May the 4th? When Pluto goes retro, the themes around power, soul, essence, and anything that is going on behind the scenes, that is going on deeper levels, all of that has to be reviewed as one theme, but also has to be looked at, has to be processed within. So a key theme with Pluto retrograde, which will go on until October 13th, is to find power within, especially in the Aquarian domain, so to say. In other words, together as people, as humanity, right? So may we find power within. May the power be in us together, and we can't do it alone. Otherwise, we might feel quite isolated these days with Pluto and Aquarius, these years. We have to come together as humanity, as it's in groups, in like-spirited, like-mindedness, and co-create what actually we wish to see in the world, rather than being disempowered by the system. Aquarius, really Aquarius has a lot to do with systems, political, societal systems, scientific systems, the church, all these various systems, right, that are really coming up now for review, also regarding shadow Pluto, right, regarding power issues, abuse of power, and so the shadow of the power of the system, right? And humanity needs to be free. And this is also a theme of we going into the Aquarius age, out of the Pisces age, which has been a lot about collectivism. And so what's with this Scorpio Taurus full moon having a theme around Buddha, right? So Buddhist teachings deal a lot with attachment. In other words, attachment creates suffering. Attachment can be showing up in many ways, typically as simple as desires, right? So I wish there's so much, right? So now I'm very invested in that. Or also aversions. And so being having a resistance, right? So a resistance, I don't want this, right? I just want to get away from it, and so on. So all of this is very charged, and it can become even like a fixed idea or an attachment that creates suffering, either way, right? So becoming free from that, how is it possible to be freer? Which is also a theme for Aquarius and Uranus, the planet, the ruler of Aquarius, coming with the sun. So we're having this double whammy, right? So you're having Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, coming with the sun, and the moon in Scorpio being ruled by Pluto, right? Being in Aquarius. So it's one closed circuit in a way, right? What's with that this Uranus-Sun connection? Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018-19 and will continue just until next year. So we're coming to the end of it. And now the sun is approaching Uranus, which you will meet on the 17th, as I said, right? So it's a big highlight, this whole Uranian theme. Uranus in Taurus especially. Taurus having to do with joy, with and Uranus with freedom. So how can you embody joy and freedom despite everything that's going on, and maybe because of everything that's going on, and contributing that vibration to the transformation, right? Not in an escapist way or in a just a hedonistic way, right? So it's actually very conscious with the sun, right? Consciously embodying joy, freedom, and that. So that definitely plays into it, while the moon is in Scorpio, where the moon is technically most challenged, right? So traditionally, I should say, traditionally most challenged in Scorpio. Why? Because these deep, dark emotions come up, and that's usually not so comfy and not so nurturing as such. But as we're going through these processes, we become stronger through that and wiser through that. And it is an important process. It's often also a purge, right, with Scorpio. And it's going into the shadow, going into the underworld, going into what's usually hidden, covered, denied also, and lots of material for psychology and so on. So things come up, and the moon is not in Scorpio yet, but you might already feel this the themes brewing, right? The moon technically enters Scorpio on Saturday the 10th at 12:56 p.m. So just from Saturday afternoon, Sunday, pretty much the weekend, right? Saturday afternoon, Sunday, and then all day Monday still the moon will be in Scorpio, culminating with a full moon on Monday the 12th at 9:56 a.m. 9:56 on Monday. So in other words, the full moon nights will be Sunday to Monday, especially, right? Especially typically when a full moon is building up, Sunday to Monday, and also still Monday to Tuesday as moon coming out of her exact fullness and being still in Scorpio. Then with the Wesak moon, the theme is also holding space for all this intensity that's currently going on, right? Very fixed, right? And then once the post full moon goes into Sagittarius, which will be on the 13th on Tuesday, from 1:35 a.m. on, so all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, and yeah, until Thursday morning, until Thursday noon, the moon will be in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is a lot about yeah. So now going out, actually, as I'm looking out, I'm seeing the moon already rising there, filling up and being currently in Libra. Anyway, extra blessing. And so, with the Sagittarius energy of the post full moon, it's about bringing out basically also all the gifts that have been gathered through this deep process and sharing those and moving forward, finding our path again. That's very Sagittarius, right? Through this process. And yeah, and there are ceremonies and rituals around the Wesak Moon. You can look things up. That is pretty much yeah. The Theosophical Society did a lot about that. I'm not associated with the Theosophists, but that is one axis. But of course, the Buddhist community itself is very much dedicated to that Wesak Moon. Definitely worth reading things up. Then yeah, we having also this tension, right? What might we process with this Wesak moon? We having this tension not just of Taurus and Scorpio, but also, as I said before, Mars in Leo being yeah, in wide square with it, right? Mars is kind of 11 degrees Leo, not quite, but it is a wide square with the full moon axis, right? YT square. So, and Mars in Leo can be very passionate and very much about really putting ourselves out and being bold there and being showing our colors, not being shy. But it can be also quite a Leo ego energy, right? Where we really need to be seen, where we make it a lot about ourselves. It becomes very dramatic, revolving a lot around ourselves, or others do that in our lives, and what to do about this, right? So typically with Leo, the whole point is to be seen and loved. But with Aquarius would say, we are all lovable and we all belong here, right? So it's not about certain people being special and having special attention and privilege and all this kind of stuff. That can be a Leo theme. And but on the other hand, to strengthen that Mars in Leo, we need to come out of the gray zone, so to say, right? Show our colors, show up and be out there and cultivate, generate intentionally joy and fun and be playful and creative. And so that can be good outlet for it all again, to work with the attachment in that regard. And so what also is going on in that full moon dynamic, as I said, this T-square to Pluto, right? So what's going on here? There is Mercury in early Taurus then, and Lilith in early Scorpio squaring Pluto. Mercury, what's going on with Mercury in Taurus? Mercury will enter Taurus on the 10th, just before the full moon, and be in Taurus until the 25th of May. A relatively short time, right? So only 15 days, only 2 weeks. Why? Because Mercury is currently pretty fast. It was much slower when it was retrograde, and the retrograde phase happened March, April, and that was in Aries back to Pisces. But now Mars is, it's a bit of a paradox, not Mars, Mercury, bit of a paradox, is going into Taurus. Taurus per se is slowing energy down from that fast and furious Aries, but it's an energy of settling, right? And grounding, taking roots, all of that is very Taurus, right? However, Mercury is a swift messenger. So we might have these Taurian themes a lot on our minds and in the news and in discussion. What are Taurian themes? Nature, body, food, money, economy, all of that can really get a lot of attention. And what's with the Scorpio side on the other hand, right? Scorpio, where Lilith is now. Lilith has entered Scorpio end of March. Will be in Scorpio until winter solstice. And this Mercury will go in opposition to Lilith. So Lilith being known as the wild woman archetype. So in a bigger sense, it is the inner wild as in the unconditioned, right? So unconditioning ourselves, shedding these layers. We're in the year of the snake also, right? Shedding all these layers of conditioning. And maybe it can happen through examining or looking at our mind, our mental positions is also Mercury in Taurus, right? Our mindset, as it's called, mental positions, and where we where the mind habitually dwells in certain, in certain comfort zones, but they also can keep us stuck, right? And can make things more, kind of easy in a way, but can make us also a bit lazy and slow us down, while Scorpio would help us dive into, especially early Scorpio around the tipping point, dive into an adventure, dive into the depth, and not just experiencing life skin deep, but going really deep and being changed in the process. And Pluto helps with that because Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, and that's where the outlet is of this square, of this T-square, of this opposition. And what does that mean? That Pluto is the outlet. So again, the deeper change that's going on in humanity can help us with getting out of our mental comfort zones. And together we can hold each other, ourselves, and each other accountable, and notice where we can get stuck and attached in maybe also what presents as values, right? That's also Taurus, what we value and enjoy, but it can be also kind of something stagnant. Then what are other what's other tension? There's more. Okay, so there's also this T-square that I introduced at the beginning. That's a mutable T-square. Now we have mutable signs from Virgo, South Node, North Node in Pisces, to Jupiter in Gemini. So that's another one. Jupiter being now squaring the nodal axis, end of Gemini. And so Jupiter has already shown us the whole year since it entered Gemini last June that yes, the information, news, discussion, all of that, there's so much to discover there. And freedom. What's with freedom of speech? That's a big one for Jupiter in Gemini. And freedom of expression and discussion without the shadow of Gemini, which is again division, right? So we're dealing with the whole spectrum of it. It's like, in this case, it's value neutral, the way how I want to convey that, right? It's not like, yeah, free speech. This is like Gemini looks at these things and sees the dichotomy and this the polarity of these two sides and endeavors to alchemize them, right? It's just two sides of one coin. It's the yin and yang. So how do we alchemize what has presented so much in the last year as polarities that are dividing us? But mostly it's all a mental thing, right? This is all happening in the minds. And then consequentially in thoughts and in discussions and so on, right? So the journey goes towards here with the North Node in Pisces, unification, unity, rather than division, as I said, or rather than from the Virgo side, compartmentalization or focusing on the problem, dissecting the whole thing, analyzing the whole thing, realizing there's more problems, there's more fault, there's more things that don't work at this point. That's where we lose a lot of energy with the South Node in Virgo, right? So that's why I also said with the nodal axis, what I've wrote the first article for it end of January, a theme like being part of the solution. In other words, not of the problem, right? How can this be resolved? And also with Pisces, how can connection be generated again? Connection, unity, and what is bigger, right? What is really the bigger picture here? That would be also Jupiter. Okay, so there's a lot going on, obviously, with this full moon, and Mercury entering Taurus. Yeah, I already talked about that. Mercury in Taurus will have not such a easy time, so to say, because it will almost exclusively have squares and oppositions with other planets while in Taurus, with other planets in fixed signs, right? And I wrote an article for that, so you can read up the details. And there's a lot of that whole Mercury business concentrating already right after that full moon in that week from the 12th to 17th. So in other words, mentally, we might be challenged, right, to see where am I stuck in my position, in what I value, what I find is unmovable, right? And how can I open up here? And how can I, from the Aquarius side, right, look at the bigger evolution, for example. And also this can relate to community and friendship, right? So friendship matters, and let's not the mind get in the way, while at the same time expressing our values. Then we have this week, the sun is still in the center of Taurus until the 10th, and so on the 11th, the sun goes into the third decanate of Taurus, which will have a Virgo undertone. For now, we have double Taurus, center of Taurus, so it's a lot about enjoyment and also generating what we value and enjoy. And then with the Virgo side, it's a lot, the energy goes more into practicalities, into service. So this could be also very much about how do we create a business, for example, right? Or a line of service that really helps people, and we are standing in our value and offering our gifts there. So And then we have the moon. Let's look into the sequence of the moon this week. Moon now in Libra since this morning, since midnight pretty much, today the 8th, and all day Friday the 9th until Saturday 12:58 p.m. I said, right? So these are days with Taurus Sun and Libra Moon, both ruled by Venus, to actually again find joy, find balance, find aesthetics, find beauty and refinement, and very yin, very feminine energy. So yeah, cultivating. What are you cultivating these days, and how are you contributing more beauty to this world and into your life? That might bring more balance. Then we have the moon in Scorpio. So this is a deep dive, right? And this is now also the central full moon of spring. The first one was the pre-Easter full moon on the 12th, was it? Yeah, the 12th of April. And now we have the central one on the 12th of May. And as I said, Wesak Moon, so the full moon prepares for that. We already feel things on a deeper level, things that need to be processed, which might have to do, despite the beauty of spring, which might have to do with grieving, might have to do with hidden emotions, with what we hide from ourselves. So there could be shame, right? It could be anything that is in the closet or under the surface usually, and allow it to come forward, and definitely allow it to process. This is the whole point with this full moon. And hold space, right? And think of the Buddha's teachings and all this. Then the moon goes into Sagittarius, goes over the Phoenix point from Scorpio to Sag on the 13th at 1:35 a.m. So that now the energy rises, right? So after this depth, after this deep dive, we rise again and we come out on the other end with the new understanding, maybe with more freedom, maybe with more, yeah, it's stories even, right? Stories to tell. And yeah, that's it for this week. And here's again the chart. I want to show you that chart, and you'll find it also in my article for the Buddha moon, for the Wesak moon. Look at that. So much tension. 3 T-squares basically, right? And the full moon also to Mars. And so I wrote an article for the Wesak moon. Check it out on my blog. And if you'd like to receive on a regular basis the astro news for the new moon and full moon, they come out typically, just send me an email, put you on my list. And yeah, and also if you're a mom, speaking of Mother's Day, if you're a mom or if you'd like to treat a mom, I have currently this special on until the 11th, which is the Astro Spa for moms. So all moms and grandmas get 22% off of my regular rate. That's my gift to them, to the mothers. And yeah, come on in. If you connect with me by the 11th, we can still count that, and the session will be, of course, afterwards. Yeah, all of that on my Facebook page, actually, also, which is also linked below. So I wish you a beautiful week. If you liked this yeah, Astro journal here and would like, please share it with others. Push the like button, subscribe, as they always say, right? All up to you if you value it. This is the whole piece around Taurus, right? And sharing in contribution and distribution is the theme with Aquarius. Wish you well. Have a beautiful week. Bye.